Welcome everyone to this segment of the Pressure Free Leadership Conference. I'm Elle Ingalls, your host and creator of the Pressure Free Method. And it's such a pleasure to introduce Dr. Mort Orman for you. We just met recently because we have shared a coach together. And I'm just really glad to bring you here because you're one of the first people I was like, oh my gosh, I have this whole list of sources you have for me to read, and it's just really, really tremendous. So go ahead and introduce yourself more for us, and then we'll just dive right in.
Yeah, sure. First, just thank you for putting this event together. It's great to meet all these wonderful leaders and other folks in the audience. So thank you for doing that. So I'm Dr. Mort Orman. I'm in 50 years now as an internal medicine physician. And in 40 of those years, I've been an anger elimination and stress elimination expert. So I don't believe in stress management. I don't believe in anger management. I think what people really want is to not have stress and to not be angry. I don't think they really want to spend their entire lives managing, just the symptoms of those particular problems. And that's, really, I'm retired from my medical practice now, but in my retirement years, my mission now is to try and eliminate as much stress and anger from the world as possible. And Lord knows we got a lot of both of those in our society today. So that's what I'm really passionate about doing, particularly working with husbands and wives so that they can learn how to stop getting angry at each other, how to stop getting angry at their kids, so that they don't keep producing angry people downstream who grow up to have other angry people, and we just grow the anger problem. So I'm really interested in helping parents understand anger better so that they don't have as much of it as they currently have. Yeah, again, towards each other, towards their kids. And that's what I enjoy doing. That's why I'm here.
And so now everybody can see how aligned Mort and I are. Like, it's just like.
And by the way, it's rare that I've been on a Zoom call lately where another person has done cadaver labs. It's like a first that I've known that.
That's pretty good. Yeah, Leela's academic life, she was in environmental policy, and yeah, she was doing her PhD at Ohio State. So amazing talent with everybody that's come on here and everybody who's watching too. You wouldn't be on this show if you didn't have amazing talents that you want to bring forward in the world. So share with us a little bit more about how you work with your clients and what you do.
Well, firstly, just to give you a little background. So in my 20s and 30s, I used to be a really angry guy. And I don't know how many people listening to this have ever seen John McEnroe play tennis. But I took up tennis when I was in my late 20s, and I was very much, not tennis wise, but anger wise, I was very much like John McEnroe on the tennis court. And I just would get furious if I missed a shot or if I lost a point I thought I should have won, and I'd stomp around and yell at myself and thrash my racket around, and I just couldn't control it. And it really, obviously, it wasn't limited to the tennis court. I mean, I was that way in life. So in my relationships, I would get angry. I would get angry at my parents, my sister, girlfriends. I even got angry at my patients the first few years in my practice when they wouldn't follow my advice, or they would go out and do stupid things, which people are prone to do. And I would read them the riot act or something like that. So I had this anger issue. And then I'm also taking care of patients, over time. So I'm seeing these people come into my office, for care. And I can tell who the angry ones are and who the non-angry ones are. And I'm observing the differences, what happens health-wise and otherwise to the angry people versus the non-angry people. So I'm seeing the angry people having more illness. I'm seeing them have more, divorces and more, relationship failures, estranged relationship with their kids and all kinds of other stuff. And I'm observing this parade of the consequences of living with chronic stress and chronic anger. And I'm realizing I have these problems myself. And so that really motivated me to realize I have to do something about this because I don't want to end up, like that. Fortunately, I was young and hadn't really gotten a lot of damage to that point, but I was still feeling it. And I tried all the standard stress management stuff and anger management stuff, and it really didn't help. So Fortunately, I made a good decision that a lot of busy people, doctors, busy people don't do. I decided to invest in personal development work. And so I started, started going to seminars and finding people that I wanted to follow and learn from and read books and tapes and all this. And I started learning all this incredible stuff that I never was taught in medical school. I mean, they teach you about hearts and lungs and kidneys and livers, but they don't teach you a hell of a lot about the human beings that, possess those organs and walk around with them every day. So they kind of figure you'll figure that out on your own, I guess. But so I was noticing that I had this deficit of understanding in terms of my own emotions, my own relationships and things. Not to mention the fact they don't teach you how to run a small business, which when you open up a medical practice, that's what you're doing. So they didn't give you any training in that. So again, you have to figure this stuff out on your own as you're going. And so I was learning all this stuff that so why don't they teach this stuff in medical school? And I started piecing together bits and pieces that I got from different sources, different people. And I was finally able to put together a system that I felt pretty confident would help me with my anger problems. And then I tested it out on myself. And lo and behold, to my surprise, actually, it worked. It worked better than anything else that I had ever tried. And so I was able to get rid of most of my anger issues and stop being an angry person, which like blew my mind that you could even do that. I mean, I didn't think that was possible. Okay. I thought once an angry person, always an angry person. I thought it was just my personality. That's just, a life sentence. That's just how I'm going to be because I couldn't change it. I tried and I kept failing. So I just figured it's just part of my nature. And I never believed that it was possible to go from being an angry guy to being a not angry guy. And the last 40 years of my life, I've had very little anger. And if I do get angry now, I know exactly where it's coming from and know exactly how to get rid of it. And it doesn't last long, it doesn't last days or weeks or years or any of that kind of stuff. So once I discovered this system for getting rid of anger, I decided I want to see if I can teach this to other people. So I started giving seminars and workshops about stress, and I would cover the anger things that I learned in these workshops and everything, and people were getting similar results that I got. So I said, I'm onto something here. This is, as a doctor, I said, I've got to keep doing this because this is really important for people's health, and it's part of really real preventive medicine. I mean,
Yes.
what we call preventive medicine in medicine is, we find out you have high blood pressure and we treat it before you get a stroke or something like that. Well, we don't really understand what causes high blood pressure for most people. We can't prevent you from getting high blood pressure or getting heart disease for most of the time or things like that. And we can do some things, but a lot of it we can't really. We can do early disease detection is what most of the, other than vaccines, is what we call preventive medicine these days. But here I was sitting with something that really, if I can keep people from getting angry and teach them how to stop getting angry, what could that prevent in their life? How many divorces could that prevent? How many estranged relationships with kids, could that prevent? How many, angry outbursts at work where you end up losing your job or you get labeled, as for creating a toxic, work environment or something like that. Even from a leadership standpoint, if your leadership strategy is to use anger, to control people and motivate people, it's really not being your best self, not being your best leader. And a lot of times those people will resent you, and the first opportunity they get to go someplace else, they're going to leave because they don't. It doesn't feel good when you're on the other side of somebody's anger, coming at you, even if it's part of the leader of the business or the manager or whatever thinks it's a great way to get things done. Yeah, you can motivate people, but at a cost, and
Yeah.
at a cost to you because you're going to take that anger home with you as more you practice it, and you're going to turn it on your kids and your wife or your husband, and it's not going to be a pretty picture,
Yeah.
in the end. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm teaching that system that I learned 40 years ago to people who, particularly husbands and wives, who recognize they have an anger issue and they don't want it to cause damage in their life or damage in their marriage or to their health or whatever. And those are the people that I'm happy to work with and help them do it. And it's amazing how fast you can turn people around. I mean, I literally have it's a 10 session program. I figured that all I really need is 10 sessions with people, 10 1-hour sessions. I can teach them the system, teach them how to use it, give them a lot of practice using it on their own anger issues, whatever it is they're upset about, whatever from the present or the past. I can show them how to use it. They get a good feel for how to do it, and then it's theirs for the rest of their life.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been using it for 40 years. I've got clients been using it for 2 decades or longer that I taught way back when, and it's just really good. And it allows you, allows you to be in control of anger, whereas most of us walk around where our anger kind of controls us, and it makes us do things, and it takes us over, and it causes us to say things and do things we later regret, and cause
Right.
problems in our life. And it's really wonderful to be on top of the anger and really, you're in control, and the anger doesn't have a chance against what you know about it and how it works and how you can defeat it anytime you want. And that's just really fun to know you've got that mastery. It's almost like being a martial artist, and whatever somebody throws at you, you could go and it's defeated, it's down on the ground.
Yeah, I love it so much. It's
Yeah.
it's so exactly what I do too. We're so aligned. And so I'm curious, can you share a little piece of your system? Can you share something out of that? That would be a great takeaway for people today.
Yeah, so I use this example when I start with a new client. I'll talk to them about my model of emotions. Now, I'm not saying this is true. I'm not saying it's the only model of emotion. I
Sure.
mean, there's a bunch of different models of emotions that are out there. I mean, Tony Robbins has his model. Other people have models. They have, there's tapping. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. But so my model is like this. I tell people, imagine you're sitting in front of your computer, and you've got a keyboard and a monitor, and you press the A key on your keyboard, and the letter A appears on your monitor screen. And then I will ask people what caused the A to appear on the screen. And people will go like, well, that's a stupid question. And obviously, pressing the A key caused the A to appear on the screen. It's pretty simple. And it's not that that's wrong. And I would say, yeah, that's true. And then I say, well, might there be any other causes that might have been involved? How about any causes, anything in the computer that might have had to be there, for the A to appear on the screen? And then they go, oh, yeah, there had to be a program running, and there had to be an operating system, first of all, for the computer to turn on. And then there had to be a word processing program so that tells the computer when the A key is pressed, you put the pixels up on the screen in the A configuration and not some other configuration. So those programs have to be there, all right? We as users of the computer don't have to know anything about them. They're invisible to us. We don't care. We don't need to know. But if you're designing a computer or you're a computer programmer, you damn well need to know what those programs are and what the specific language is. And it's not random. It's very precise. It's got to be just a certain way for the A to appear when you press the A. But I tell people our emotions are a lot like that. When somebody pushes your anger button, you see them pushing your anger button or whatever they're doing that does that. You feel the anger in your body, and you think it's a simple cause effect. A causes B. What you don't see is there's a hidden program in the background in your body. And when I say body, I'm including the mind and the brain that's running. There's specific thought patterns, ways of perceiving that event that got triggered in you. And without that, you don't get the emotion of anger. Or you don't get other emotions, like there's a different set of a different program for anxiety, a different program for guilt, a different program for jealousy. It does, each one has their own sort of cognitive behavioral constellation of filters through which we perceive the external events that are upsetting us or bothering us or causing emotional reactions in us. And almost nobody's been taught that. I mean, I wasn't taught it. I went all through, college. I went all through medical school. I even went into therapy during medical school, which they offered for free because I was having a lot of anxiety and other kinds of stress problems. And I spent a couple years in therapy. My therapist never taught me this stuff.
No.
Again, I didn't learn it until I went out seeking that kind of solution or insights on my own. And it's not being taught today. It's not being taught. I think it's criminal that kids can graduate from college today and they don't understand what causes their anger. They don't understand what causes other emotions that they have. They really are not trained in any relationship skills most of the time. And they're certainly not taught how to eliminate stress from their lives.
And the therapists aren't either. Like I've
Yeah,
coached a lot of therapists and
yeah,
psychologists and physicians. They're
yeah,
not taught any of this.
yeah. But isn't that the purpose of education, to not only, accumulate knowledge and be worldly and literate and all that stuff, but also to prepare you for a good and happy life and to be successful, and to be a leader, in whatever field that you choose to lead in, to do good things to make the world a better place. And
Yeah.
to do that, you can't have your emotions, dragging you all around and sapping your energy and sapping your focus and causing relationship conflicts all over the place and causing you to lose sleep at night because you go to bed angry and you're tired, you wake up to all the crap that comes from it.
Yeah.
You gotta, it's like we were talking earlier today about if you're going to be a competitive athlete, you better get good sleep. That's like a key priority. If you're not rested, if your body's not rested, you're not going to be able to perform as well, and in a competitive environment, that's going to hurt you. So yeah, so we, as a society, not only do we not prepare people to deal with anger and stress, but we kind of convince them it's not that big a deal. Don't focus too much on all the drawbacks and all the costs, associated with having these problems and letting them stay in your life when you could eliminate them. And that's one of the big things I see today is people walking around with all this anger, walking around with all this stress when they don't have to have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't believe that they've been brainwashed to think that it's just part of life and they're destined
Or
to.
that's the way they are. Like I'll have clients say to me, isn't this I inherited this, like, or my dad's Italian, so I have a hot temper. And
Yeah,
we're imitating. I
yeah,
mean, we're imitating. So we act that out. I had a client whose parents were Cuban and his father abused him, and he didn't want to bring that into now as a dad. And it was so cool to watch him not have to do that. I said, you don't have to do that. We get to change that. And it was
yeah,
just
yeah.
beautiful because, and Corinne is saying here, she's a very unique practitioner in England. I would have worked this way with you. This is how I work. Go to the root, learn to understand, notice, and then know what to do about it. Anger, anxiety, etc. What's really wild is sometimes I don't even go to the root. I'm
If you
just
don't,
like, you're
you don't have
starting
to.
to
If you
you're
don't have to,
starting
you
to
don't.
feel this emotion, like boom, right in that moment. And then later they'll say, oh, now we can connect the dots, because you can't connect the dots if you go into fight or flight. Like it's really hard.
Yeah, when you're in the middle of an emotion, when you're in the middle of an anger episode, it's hard to understand what's going on. But that's part of the point because this internal programming or ways of looking at things, it's invisible to us. It's because it's going on inside us, and we're focused on what's going on outside that we don't like. Right? But we don't see that a program got triggered in us, and we don't know what the program is, and they're not that complicated. There's only a couple, thought patterns and a couple behavior patterns that underlie each emotion.
I have a really important question. So
Sure.
when I have a client who's got anger issues, um, I talk to them and I want your opinion on this about, like, it's very easy to justify and rationalize our anger. Like we have our reasons for it, and they'll have, it's like a case study.
Yeah.
If they, well,
Yeah.
I am justified and blah, blah, blah. So I'd like to share about that a little bit, the justification.
Well, it's
Um,
funny. It's funny. I've done hundreds of stress workshops over the last 40 years, and I usually go through a piece on anger, where I talk about and I show people what the mechanism is, what the program is for anger. All right, and you can actually, when you learn it, you can put it on an index card. You can have four thoughts on the front and four behaviors on the back. Okay, and if there's like 30 or 40 or more people in the room, invariably when I'm going through this, somebody will pop up, raise their hand, and they will be angry at me.
right?
And they will express what they're angry about, and because they're people who are really attached to their anger, and they have spent their whole lives justifying their anger and feeling that it makes them more human. It's part of who they are, and they see me in this workshop as trying to teach people how not to have anger. So it looks to me like I'm damaging their humanity. I'm detracting from
Interesting.
their humanity. So they will raise an objection. to what I'm doing. And it all comes from this justifying anger, which, by the way, is one of the behaviors that contributes to anger persisting. When you're constantly justifying your anger, you're not trying to identify the root causes and deal with the root causes. You're just fostering the anger. Okay, so that's one of the 4 behaviors that makes anger last longer than it needs to. So
Wow.
yeah. Yeah. So
Powerful.
it's a very big problem because we all tend to justify, and we're not only justifying our anger, but we're justifying our perception of reality, which it looks and feels true to us.
Yeah.
And the anger kind of makes us think that the way we're seeing things is the way they actually really truly are.
Right.
And it feels like we're justified in sticking with our anger. But if you really start to examine the underpinnings of the anger, you often find out that there are pieces of it that are not justified.
Right. Right. That's right.
And
It takes.
if you're not willing to look at that, if you're not willing to dig in and look at that and question and ask the tough questions, let me give you an example. My wife and I just celebrated our 39th wedding anniversary just 2 weeks ago. And I got to tell you, that would have never happened had I not discovered how to deal with my anger 40 years ago.
Right.
Okay. And because all of my relationships before that failed, and mostly they failed because I didn't know how to deal with anger in the relationship. And so I figured it out finally, and then I met my wife about a year later, and then we got married subsequently, and so we rarely fight. We really have knockdown, drag out fights. And early in our relationship, we almost never fought. And there was this interesting thing that happened. There was this pattern that emerged that in a certain circumstance, we would end up fighting with each other. It was like so bizarre because it wasn't our pattern. And it only happened when we went on a car trip somewhere, for a couple of days, for a vacation or something. And it didn't happen on the way driving to our destination. We didn't argue when we were at the place that we were at for a couple of days. It only happened when we drove home.
Interesting.
And it happened when it happened like the 3rd time in a row. It just like raised this red flag. I said, I got to look into this. Something fishy's going on here because this isn't
Right.
typical for us. So I started looking into it and realized, and what I finally figured out was, what would happen is we would start to drive home, and my wife would say, "Oh, there's something over here that I really want to see. It's only an hour off of our path, and let's go do that." And I would usually be driving, and I would say, "No, we're not doing that," with a real tone.
I hear you, Tom. I hear that more.
It wasn't just no, but it wasn't just no, but no, that's wrong.
Right.
I didn't say that that's wrong, but that was implied in the tone. and then she would get offended, like I was accusing her of doing something wrong, and she knew felt she wasn't doing something wrong. So, I realized that what was happening was that in my family of origin, which was different from her family of origin, when we went on trips and we would end the trip, we would drive directly home, straight path, maybe stop for gas, maybe stop for food or bathroom break, whatever. But we went directly home. In her family, it was opposite. Her mother and father would frequently deviate off the path to go see something and do something. And that's what their family tradition was. So what I saw was she had her way of doing it, I had my way of doing it. And when I asked myself the $64 million question, the question was, is her way really wrong? And is my way really right? Because that's how I was looking at it when I was.
Wait, I got to put that in the chat. Is her way really wrong?
And was my way really right?
Was my way.
Because that's the prism that when she says, I want to go over here, it's only an hour out of the way. To me, that was wrong behavior. Okay, that's not how you drive home.
Right.
I knew perfectly well how to drive home. I've been doing it for years. Who the hell does she think she is? Telling me how to drive home.
So good.
So when I asked myself that question, the answer was obvious. It's like, no, it's not my way is right, her way is wrong. It's just she has her preference, I have my preference. And from that point on, I realized it was a ridiculous thing for me. Firstly, it was wrong of me to have accused her of being wrong. So now, from that point on, whenever she said we're driving home somewhere, and she said, I want to go over here, it's an hour. And I said, sure, hon, if you want to go, let's do it. If it makes you happy.
So beautiful.
Let's do it.
So beautiful.
But so that's that shift in perspective. You know, the thing that causes the anger is we see somebody doing something bad or wrong. And sometimes we don't realize that we're judging that person based on our own standards, our own particular preferences, or you know, how we've been taught to do it or believe it should be done. Uh,
Right.
and it's not that that's just all it is. It's not that they're doing something truly bad and wrong, but that's our prism says it is. Our filter says it is, and then and the anger flows from that plus some other
And
thought
we,
patterns that are part of
yeah,
it.
we
Yeah,
also have enormous fear about being wrong. Like that can be really strong in us. And Corinne says here, like, don't nurse it. Don't nurse, you know, we nurse the justification, the rationalization, you know, we'll nurse that because God forbid we're wrong.
yeah.
You know?
And you know, that was the toughest thing. That was the toughest, the one thing that kept me from eliminating most of my stress and my anger because I was a doctor. I went through 7 years of boot camp training
Right.
and how to never be wrong about anything and how to absolutely avoid being wrong at all costs. Because as a doctor, you got to do that. You can't afford to be wrong. You can't make a wrong diagnosis. You can't have the decimal point on the prescription you're writing out in a hurry, you know, be in the wrong place. You know, you can do damage to people. So everything you got to be right. And the worst thing you can do as a doctor is be wrong. And that got ingrained into me. So I was cut off from the most important skill that eliminates stress and anger for human beings, is to be willing to embrace that we're often wrong about a lot of things when we think we're right.
I'm typing that one into, we're often wrong about a lot of things.
Yeah. Now, fortunately, in medicine, that's not usually the case. Most
Right.
doctors are usually not frequently wrong. You know, every once in a while, maybe. But in other than in a profession where you learn you know, particular skills that are tested and proven and all that kind of stuff. But when you're out in life and you're in relationships and you're dealing with your kids and you're dealing with your coworkers and you get upset about something, usually there's something, we're wrong about something that's underneath of it, and that's what's causing the problem, you
Yeah.
know?
So
Yeah.
this has been so great, Mort. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to make sure everybody gets that link to you when we send everything out on Monday. Hopefully Monday, it all works. And
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful to know you and to have you in my life. And I can't wait for more conversations with you. And just really grateful you were willing to come on here and share today. And I'm sure everybody else is too. It's just really cool to have this wisdom and especially going deep on the one piece of anger, which you and I've talked about. I mean, you help people with a lot of different things,
Oh,
anxiety,
yeah. Yeah.
etc. But
Yeah.
that anger piece is something you lived and you went
Yeah.
through. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's a skill set that I have that's now a gift that I can, you know, offer people and give them the same freedom, you know, from anger in their lives that I've enjoyed the last 40 years. And it's really been wonderful. And I just wish that for everybody who struggles with anger and is concerned it might be, you know, causing damage in their life in lots of different ways. So, yeah.
well, thank you, Mort. We're going to move to our next speaker now.